Question 1051. Your Agile team is delivering in sprints, but the overall program has fixed waterfall deadlines for design, development, integration, and UAT. Midway through the project, the PMO demands a committed end date for full functionality, even though the backlog is still evolving. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Facilitate a discussion with the PMO and PO to align on scope flexibility, use burn-up charts and velocity trends to project realistic ranges, and negotiate scope schedule trade-offs rather than giving a fixed promise. In my opinion, this is the best option because aligns waterfall schedule expectations with Agile's empirical forecasting, uses actual delivery data rather than guesses, sets realistic commitments by adjusting scope or expectations. Better than making rigid promises without evidence, Agile teams can support waterfall governance through empirical forecasting and negotiation. Using data and trade-offs ensures commitments remain realistic and manageable. Question 1052. A fixed waterfall milestone requires a complete architecture sign-off before development begins, but your Agile team needs to experiment and learn through incremental spikes. Architecture leadership says, no iterations allowed. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Negotiate with architecture leaders to allow iterative technical spikes and incremental design validation while still meeting the milestone by providing progressive architecture documentation. In my opinion, this is the best option because balances Agile exploration with waterfall governance, allows learning while keeping architecture stakeholders informed, reduces risk of late architectural surprises, better than rigidly following either approach exclusively. Incremental architectural validation ensures quality while meeting governance expectations. Collaboration prevents rigidity or chaos. Question 1053. The waterfall master schedule mandates a single large UAT phase at the end, but Agile teams finish features incrementally. Business users want early previews to reduce late surprises. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Coordinate with business users to run rolling UAT or early validation sessions each sprint or release, while still maintaining a final formal UAT for governance compliance. In my opinion, this is the best option because reduces late-stage surprises, supports continuous validation within waterfall constraints, improves overall quality and readiness, better than waiting months for feedback. Hybrid delivery benefits from early, iterative validation while respecting waterfall governance. This reduces risk and enables smoother final UAT. Question 1054. A major waterfall milestone requires complete requirements before development, but the Agile team's PO prefers emerging requirements and iterative refinement. The PMO insists this approach violates governance. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with the PO and PMO to create a tiered requirements approach, capturing high-level requirements for the milestone while allowing Agile refinement of details throughout sprints. In my opinion, this is the best option because balances governance compliance and Agile adaptability, prevents premature, overly detailed requirements, gives PMO enough structure without limiting iteration, better than forcing full detail up front. Hybrid success requires balancing initial requirement commitments with adaptable refinement. Tiered documentation satisfies both. Question 1055. The program manager wants a firm commitment on when integration testing will start, but Agile teams deliver components incrementally based on priority, not in the order integration requires. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with program management and the PO to align backlog sequencing with integration dependencies, ensuring components required for integration testing are delivered earlier in the roadmap. In my opinion, this is the best option because aligns incremental delivery with dependency order, prevents integration delays later, supports predictable hybrid planning, better than forcing teams to change priorities abruptly mid-sprint. Hybrid planning requires aligning backlog priorities with integration sequencing. Proactive dependency management reduces late testing risks. Question 1056. Your Agile team is moving quickly, but waterfall-aligned stakeholders want detailed documentation for each milestone. The team sees this as unnecessary overhead. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Define right-sized documentation expectations with stakeholders, capturing essential information while avoiding heavy, non-value-adding templates, and incorporate these needs into the team's definition of done. In my opinion, this is the best option because satisfies governance without overwhelming the team, ensures documentation is consistent and incremental, balances agility with compliance, better than resisting documentation altogether. Hybrid environments need adaptable documentation strategies. Right-sizing documentation prevents waste while meeting essential governance needs. Question 1057. Late in the program, waterfall leaders demand assurance that the final release will meet their planned date. However, new insights from Agile increments reveal unanticipated complexities. Pressure builds to just commit. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Present empirical data from completed sprints, show projection ranges, explain risks transparently, and negotiate scope adjustments or buffer allocations instead of making rigid commitments. In my opinion, this is the best option because bases commitments on evidence, not hope, helps stakeholders understand realistic constraints, reduces risk of future failure or burnout. Better than promising certainty when uncertainty exists. Using empirical evidence and negotiation is the safest approach. Hybrid governance still benefits from data-driven forecasting. Question 1058. A waterfall-aligned testing phase requires a large batch of features to be delivered together. Agile teams want to release features incrementally, but the integration environment only accepts batch deployments. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Collaborate with DevOps and program leadership to create a hybrid deployment strategy, using feature toggles or sandbox environments for incremental validation while maintaining batch deployment for integration compliance. In my opinion, this is the best option because supports Agile incremental validation, respects waterfall testing constraints, reduces integration phase risk, better than forcing either extreme. Feature toggles and sandbox testing help Agile teams validate early while honoring waterfall constraints. Hybrid approaches reduce integration surprises. Question 1059. You discover that waterfall leadership expects a single Gantt chart for the entire year, but Agile teams continuously reprioritize work based on value. Leadership insists they need the certainty. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Provide a high-level roadmap aligned with business themes and quarterly milestones, while clearly communicating that sprint-level priorities will adapt based on feedback and learning. In my opinion, this is the best option because offers strategic predictability without false precision, satisfies leadership's need for visibility, preserves Agile flexibility at the sprint level, better than forcing fixed, long-term task-level scheduling. Roadmaps provide strategic visibility while allowing Agile delivery to remain flexible. This satisfies waterfall governance without sacrificing adaptability. Question 1060. The waterfall program manager wants formal sign-off before every stage, design, build, test, but the Agile team prefers continuous stakeholder involvement instead of gated approvals. How should you reconcile this? Here's my answer and why. Integrate formal sign-offs into the Agile cadence by using sprint reviews, design walkthroughs, and incremental demos as checkpoints that also satisfy waterfall governance needs. In my opinion, this is the best option because bridges Agile collaboration with waterfall stage gates, ensures stakeholders review work continuously, avoids duplicate meetings and documentation, better than rigid, isolated sign-off events. Hybrid integration is strongest when Agile ceremonies serve dual purposes, progress demonstration and governance sign-off. Question 1061. Your Agile team delivers iteratively, but the PMO requires monthly waterfall-style status reports with fixed scope tracking, detailed earned value metrics, and milestone variance explanations. The team feels these reports don't reflect Agile delivery accurately. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Collaborate with the PMO to translate Agile metrics, e.g. burn-up, velocity trends, feature completion, into waterfall-compatible reporting formats, so both governance styles are satisfied without duplicating effort. In my opinion, this is the best option because aligns Agile evidence with waterfall reporting requirements, reduces duplication and extra overhead, preserves accuracy while meeting governance expectations, better than producing separate, conflicting reports. Mixed governance requires translation, not rejection. Converting Agile data into PMO-friendly structures preserves transparency and reduces process conflict. Question 1062. The organization requires strict change control approval for all requirement modifications, but the Agile team frequently refines stories based on sprint feedback. Compliance insists this violates audit rules. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with compliance to define a lightweight change control mapping where story refinements within a sprint are logged and traceable, while major scope changes still follow formal approval workflows. In my opinion, this is the best option because balances Agile flexibility with compliance traceability, differentiates between iterative refinement and real scope change, reduces audit risks, better than forcing heavy approvals for minor adjustments. Hybrid governance succeeds when Agile iteration and compliance structure coexist. Mapping small refinements to lightweight controls keeps the process efficient and compliant. Question 1063. Risk management requires formal risk logs with impact probability scoring, but the Agile team prefers lightweight visual boards. Leadership wants a unified format. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Maintain the Agile visual risk board for team use while translating key risks into the PMO's formal risk log to ensure both collaboration and governance alignment. In my opinion, this is the best option because supports team-friendly risk visualization, meets governance standards, allows consistent escalation and reporting, better than forcing one side to abandon their needs. A dual-system approach, lightweight for teams, formal for governance, ensures good visibility and compliance without unnecessary overhead. Question 1064. PMO demands strict milestone tracking, but Agile teams measure progress by completed stories and working increments. Leadership wants clarity on whether milestones are green, amber, red. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Convert Agile progress indicators, e.g., burn-up, completed features, increment readiness, into milestone health status and provide milestone RAG scores derived from empirical progress data. In my opinion, this is the best option because connects Agile progress to milestone health, provides leadership with familiar tracking, keeps reporting evidence-based, better than arbitrary RAG ratings. Hybrid reporting requires connecting incremental Agile evidence to waterfall-style summaries. Empirical translation builds trust and clarity. Question 1065. Governance requires upfront resource allocation for the entire year, but Agile teams want dynamic allocation based on evolving priorities. Finance insists on annual planning accuracy. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with finance to allocate high-level yearly capacity while allowing quarterly reassessment cycles that adjust staffing based on changing priorities. In my opinion, this is the best option because satisfies annual budgeting needs, preserves Agile adaptability, provides structured checkpoints for realignment, better than rigid annual resource locking. Quarterly realignment provides a bridge between the predictability finance needs and the adaptability Agile teams require. Question 1066. The organization mandates strict documentation for audits, but Agile teams use lightweight artifacts and rely heavily on conversations. Auditors say, "This won't pass." What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Establish a minimal set of mandatory documentation templates aligned with audit needs, generated incrementally during sprints, ensuring evidence is captured without heavy overhead. In my opinion, this is the best option because satisfies audit requirements, prevents last-minute documentation scramble, fits Agile iteration cadence, better than producing large documents at project end. Incremental documentation allows Agile teams to remain lean while providing evidence required for governance and audits. Question 1067. Your hybrid program requires both Agile sprint reviews and formal stage gate reviews. Stakeholders are confused by duplicated meetings and mixed reporting formats. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Combine Agile sprint reviews with stage gate checkpoints by aligning agendas and ensuring the sprint review outputs satisfy governance criteria. In my opinion, this is the best option because eliminates duplication, maintains compliance without extra work, increases stakeholder engagement, better than running separate redundant meetings. Hybrid governance improves when Agile events double as governance checkpoints, reducing waste while improving alignment. Question 1068. Certain departments require formal approvals before work begins, but Agile teams want to pull work dynamically from the backlog during sprints. The approval process causes delays. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Integrate approval steps into backlog refinement and sprint planning, ensuring items receive pre-approval before entering the sprint. In my opinion, this is the best option because aligns approvals with Agile flow, prevents delays mid-sprint, keeps governance intact, better than waiting for approvals after development starts. Embedding approvals early ensures compliance while preserving Agile momentum and avoiding sprint blocking delays. Question 1069. Legal and regulatory teams require formal documentation before release, but Agile teams release incrementally through CI/CD. Legal says, we can't review that often. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Batch legal reviews at meaningful release checkpoints while allowing CI/CD internal deployments, ensuring external releases meet regulatory requirements without blocking internal progress. In my opinion, this is the best option because balances speed with compliance, allows teams to continue validating incrementally, meets mandatory release governance rules, better than forcing forth legal to review every increment. A hybrid release strategy allows Agile teams to maintain flow while ensuring legal compliance at appropriate checkpoints. Question 1070. Executives want a single program-level status integrating Agile and Waterfall teams. Agile teams use velocity and burndowns, Waterfall teams use Gantt and EV metrics. Leadership wants a unified dashboard. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create an integrated dashboard where Agile metrics are translated into delivery forecasts and feature completion rates, while Waterfall metrics feed schedule adherence, allowing both to coexist in a consistent executive view. In my opinion, this is the best option because supports both methodologies without distortion, provides holistic visibility, preserves empirical Agile insights, better than forcing all teams into one metric style. Unified dashboards must respect methodological differences. Translating Agile and Waterfall signals into a common view ensures accurate high-level governance alignment. Question 1071. Your Agile team is working within a Waterfall program that requires formal design-complete and build-complete gates before moving to the next phase. However, the team wants to iterate on design during development. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with governance stakeholders to agree on a baseline design for the gate, while documenting that iterative design refinements will continue during development, ensuring updates are tracked without blocking Agile progress. In my opinion, this is the best option because allows the team to keep iterating while meeting mandatory gate criteria, balances upfront design expectations with Agile adaptability, reduces risk of rework by keeping designs current, better than forcing complete design freeze prematurely. Hybrid environments require both milestone compliance and Agile iteration. A baseline plus refinement approach satisfies both. Question 1072. The Waterfall program requires a complete requirements document before development starts, but your Agile team prefers user stories that evolve gradually during sprints. Compliance insists no development until full documentation is approved. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Negotiate a two-layer requirement approach, high-level requirements to satisfy the gate and incremental story-level details refined throughout sprints, with traceability maintained between the two. In my opinion, this is the best option because meets Waterfall documentation expectations, preserves Agile iterative detail refinement, maintains traceability required for audits, better than forcing complete detail up front. High-level Waterfall requirements and detailed Agile stories can coexist, enabling structure without sacrificing agility. Question 1073. A Waterfall integration gate requires proof of component readiness before entering system testing. Your Agile team delivers working increments each sprint, but they are not fully integration ready. The PMO wants proof of readiness. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Define clear integration criteria with PMO and progressively validate components against these criteria during sprints, ensuring readiness evidence is accumulated before reaching the integration gate. In my opinion, this is the best option because ensures compliance with integration gate requirements, allows continuous readiness validation, reduces last-minute testing surprises. Better than waiting until the gate to validate everything. Progressive validation keeps Agile delivery flowing while ensuring formal integration. Gates are satisfied without last-minute surprises. Question 1074. Waterfall governance requires formal test plan complete before system testing can start. Agile teams run continuous testing throughout sprints. QA leadership asks for proof that testing aligns with governance. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create a hybrid test strategy where Agile testing artifacts, automated tests, acceptance criteria, sprint test summaries are mapped into a lightweight formal test plan that satisfies the gate. In my opinion, this is the best option because leverages Agile testing outputs, meets waterfall documentation needs, avoids duplicate effort. Better than creating an entirely separate test plan. Mapping Agile testing into waterfall documentation ensures both continuous quality and compliance with gating criteria. Question 1075. A waterfall design gate requires formal sign-off from architecture, security, and UX teams. Your Agile team struggles because these reviewers' schedules don't align with sprint cycles, causing blocking delays. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with stakeholders to schedule recurring, lightweight design review touchpoints during sprints so approvals can accumulate progressively rather than waiting for a single large gate review. In my opinion, this is the best option because reduces bottlenecks caused by reviewer availability, distributes review workload across iterations, ensures feedback arrives early and often. Better than waiting for a single overloaded approval event. Progressive reviews integrate Agile cadence with waterfall governance, reducing delays and improving quality. Question 1076. The PMO requires milestone-based cost reporting tied to phase completion. Your Agile team spends budget iteratively based on sprint work, not phases. Finance says tracking is inconsistent. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Map sprint-level expenditure and delivered value to the waterfall phase model, creating a simple conversion so phase-based cost reporting aligns with Agile financial burn. In my opinion, this is the best option because maintains Agile iteration while satisfying finance needs, creates consistent cross-program reporting, reflects true progress and cost burn. Better than forcing Agile teams to adopt phase-based spending. Mapping Agile costs into waterfall reporting satisfies both governance models without changing how the team delivers value. Question 1077. The organization uses a change advisory board for waterfall gating, but Agile teams deliver frequent increments. CAB reviews become bottlenecks. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with CAB to create a tiered approval model, allowing low-risk Agile increments to move through pre-approved pathways while reserving CAB reviews for higher-risk changes. In my opinion, this is the best option because reduces CAB bottlenecks, maintains governance for high-risk changes, supports Agile continuous delivery, better than routing every small change through CAB. Tiered approval pathways are a strong hybrid practice, enabling Agile speed while preserving governance oversight. Question 1078. A waterfall sign-off requires stakeholders to approve the final UX design. However, the Agile team iterates on UX every sprint. Stakeholders complain that the design keeps changing after sign-off. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Agree with stakeholders to sign off on a baseline UX design while documenting that incremental UX refinements will occur, with major changes routed through formal approval. In my opinion, this is the best option because balances stability with iterative UX learning, clarifies expectations on what sign-off means, ensures governance compliance for major changes. Better than freezing UX completely. Baseline approvals with iterative refinement preserve UX flexibility while maintaining compliance with formal review expectations. Question 1079. A waterfall requirement mandates a large technical design document, TDD, before development. Agile teams prefer lightweight diagrams and evolving architecture. Architects demand the full TDD. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Produce a high-level TDD that satisfies the gate while maintaining supplementary lightweight Agile artifacts that evolve during development, updating the TDD incrementally as needed. In my opinion, this is the best option because meets TDD gate expectations, avoids unnecessary upfront detail, allows architecture to evolve iteratively, better than forcing heavy design up front. Hybrid architecture documentation combines baseline TDD with evolving agile designs, ensuring compliance and adaptability. Question 1080. The waterfall release gate requires full regression testing before release. Agile teams rely heavily on automated tests and incremental testing, but cannot complete full regressions every sprint. Release management insists on strict compliance. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Maintain incremental automated regression each sprint while scheduling full regression testing aligned with release gates, ensuring both ongoing quality and gate compliance. In my opinion, this is the best option because balances agile automation with waterfall full regression expectations, ensures releases meet quality standards, reduces risk by catching issues early, better than forcing full regressions each sprint. Hybrid quality strategy uses automation for continuous confidence and full regressions for governance compliance, ensuring safe and reliable releases. Question 1081. Your Agile team focuses on lightweight artifacts and working software, but the waterfall-aligned PMO requires detailed design documents, test plans, and traceability matrices before approving the next phase. The team feels this is wasteful. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with the PMO to identify the minimum required documentation for governance. Map Agile artifacts, e.g., acceptance criteria, test automation results, design sketches, to those needs, and create a hybrid documentation package that avoids duplication. In my opinion, this is the best option because reduces unnecessary documentation while maintaining compliance, reuses Agile artifacts instead of creating new documents, improves efficiency and alignment with governance, better than forcing heavy upfront documentation. Hybrid documentation succeeds when Agile outputs are mapped to governance needs. This preserves agility while satisfying process controls. Question 1082. Security and compliance teams demand a 50-page design document before development, but your Agile team has only produced evolving diagrams and notes. The compliance deadline is approaching. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create a concise, high-level design document using existing Agile artifacts, link evolving diagrams as appendices, and agree with compliance on incremental updates during upcoming sprints. In my opinion, this is the best option because satisfies compliance quickly with minimal duplication, uses existing Agile work to reduce waste, allows ongoing updates without halting progress, better than writing a massive document from scratch. Leveraging Agile artifacts minimizes overhead while meeting compliance obligations. Incremental updates maintain documentation relevance. Question 1083. Your organization requires formal test plans and evidence before proceeding to the next gate, but the Agile team only maintains automated test results and sprint test notes. QA leadership says, this isn't acceptable documentation. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create a simplified formal test plan that incorporates Agile testing artifacts, linking automated test suites, acceptance criteria, and sprint-level test summaries to provide the required evidence. In my opinion, this is the best option because uses existing Agile work to meet governance needs, minimizes duplicated documentation, ensures auditability and traceability, better than building separate documents manually. Mapping Agile test evidence to formal documentation keeps teams efficient while satisfying required quality gates. Question 1084. A waterfall-aligned architect insists on a fully detailed architecture document before sprint work begins. The Agile team prefers iterative architecture through spikes and incremental refinement. Conflict escalates. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Agree on a high-level architecture baseline that satisfies the architect's gate requirement while capturing incremental design changes in an evolving architecture log updated each sprint. In my opinion, this is the best option because delivers required documentation without stifling iteration, reduces conflict between Agile and architecture governance, ensures architecture remains up to date throughout delivery, better than forcing either side to fully adopt the other's approach. A hybrid architecture baseline plus iterative updates satisfies both Agile flexibility and waterfall governance expectations. Question 1085. Your PMO expects detailed weekly status reports with narrative explanations and risk commentary. Agile teams already maintain sprint boards, burndowns, and daily updates. Stakeholders complain that Agile reports are too light. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Translate Agile artifacts into the PMO-required weekly format using concise summaries derived from sprint data, ensuring status is accurate without creating excessive new documentation. In my opinion, this is the best option because maintains Agile simplicity while meeting PMO expectations, prevents duplicated reporting, ensures consistency across governance stakeholders. Better than generating entirely new reports manually, Agile data can drive lightweight yet governance-compliant reporting, ensuring transparency across both governance workflows. Question 1086. Your organization requires formal traceability from requirements to test cases, but the Agile team only tracks items in the backlog with acceptance criteria. QA says the current setup won't pass audits. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Introduce a lightweight traceability matrix that maps user stories to acceptance criteria, test cases, and sprint test evidence, using automation or existing tools to reduce manual work. In my opinion, this is the best option because preserves Agile workflow while satisfying traceability requirements, minimizes manual overhead, ensures audit readiness. Better than manually creating complex matrices, mapping Agile acceptance criteria into traceability formats gives teams the best of both worlds, efficiency and compliance. Question 1087. The compliance team requires formal sign-off for every documentation update, but the Agile team updates artifacts frequently as understanding evolves. Approval delays slow down the team. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with compliance to classify updates into categories, minor updates eligible for auto-approval, and major changes requiring formal sign-off, thus reducing approval bottlenecks. In my opinion, this is the best option because minimizes unnecessary delays, preserves Agile flexibility, keeps major governance controls intact, better than forcing approvals for every small change. Tiered approval models prevent delays while ensuring governance oversight remains intact. Question 1088. The PMO requests a detailed project plan with tasks, dependencies, and dates, but the Agile team manages work using a prioritized backlog and sprint plans. Stakeholders insist this is a documentation gap. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Produce a high-level roadmap and release plan derived from backlog priorities, mapping major epics to milestone dates, while explaining that task-level details are handled within sprints. In my opinion, this is the best option because provides governance with needed schedule visibility, preserves Agile flexibility at sprint level, avoids false precision in long-term task planning, better than creating a rigid micro-detailed plan. Hybrid delivery excels when teams provide high-level plans for governance while retaining Agile flexibility for detailed execution. Question 1089. Your organization mandates document reviews at phase gates, but your Agile team updates artifacts during every sprint. Review board members complain that documents change too frequently. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Establish a controlled document versioning and snapshot process, allowing the review board to assess stable versions at each gate, while Agile teams continue iterative updates between gates. In my opinion, this is the best option because minimizes confusion from frequent updates, keeps iterative evolution intact, preserves governance integrity, better than forcing static documents. Snapshotting provides reviewers stability while allowing Agile teams to iterate freely, resolving documentation churn issues. Question 1090. Compliance requires a full as-built document at release, but Agile teams continuously refine the product and have many small decisions undocumented. At release time, documentation gaps appear. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Introduce incremental as-built documentation updates each sprint, capturing key design and implementation decisions during development, rather than waiting until release. In my opinion, this is the best option because prevents end-of-project documentation backlog, ensures accuracy and traceability, fits seamlessly into Agile cadence, better than reconstructing documentation at the end. Incremental documentation integrated into sprint workflow ensures accuracy, reduces rework, and satisfies compliance without overwhelming teams. Question 91. A waterfall program requires a major milestone demo every 12 weeks, but your Agile team delivers in 2-week sprints. Stakeholders say sprint demos are too frequent and not aligned with the program's cadence. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create a milestone-aligned demo plan, summarizing key increments from multiple sprints, while still running regular sprint reviews for Agile feedback, ensuring both short-cycle learning and alignment with the 12-week milestone. In my opinion, this is the best option because preserves Agile feedback loops while meeting milestone expectations, creates clear alignment for program stakeholders, avoids overwhelming leadership with frequent demos. Better than altering sprint length or skipping reviews. A blended demo approach satisfies both Agile learning needs and waterfall milestone reporting expectations without compromising cadence. Question 1092. Waterfall planning requires fixed delivery milestones 6 months in advance, but your Agile team reprioritizes backlog items frequently. Leadership says your sprint-based planning doesn't align with long-term commitments. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create a high-level release roadmap tied to milestones using epics and forecasted delivery windows, while keeping sprint backlog prioritization flexible within those boundaries. In my opinion, this is the best option because provides long-term visibility for waterfall planning, preserves Agile adaptability inside sprints, prevents overcommitment to uncertain details, better than fixing all scope up front. Roadmaps bridge Agile adaptability and waterfall predictability, enabling alignment at both strategic and tactical levels. Question 1093. Your Agile team works in 3-week sprints, but the waterfall PMO requires monthly status checkpoints. Sprint boundaries do not align neatly with the monthly cycle, causing confusion on what to report. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create a reporting approach that summarizes progress at the closest sprint boundary relative to the PMO checkpoint, ensuring consistent data without altering sprint cadence. In my opinion, this is the best option because maintains Agile sprint rhythm, provides PMO with stable and timely reporting, avoids unnecessary administrative complexity, better than modifying sprint cycles to match months. Aligning reporting without altering sprint cadence maintains Agile integrity while meeting waterfall checkpoints effectively. Question 1094. A waterfall milestone requires a detailed dependency map before execution begins. However, your Agile team discovers dependencies incrementally through backlog refinement. PMO says your approach lacks planning discipline. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Produce an initial high-level dependency map for the milestone using known information and commit to updating it iteratively as new dependencies emerge during refinement. In my opinion, this is the best option because meets milestone planning requirements, allows Agile discovery during execution, provides sufficient upfront visibility, better than prematurely finalizing all dependencies. Hybrid dependency mapping leverages Agile discovery while ensuring upfront visibility required by waterfall stages. Question 1095. Your Agile team runs continuous integration and frequent incremental builds, but the waterfall release milestone requires a consolidated, release-ready build only at specific dates. The team complains that waiting for milestone releases creates idle time. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Continue building incrementally, but schedule milestone-aligned consolidated builds, ensuring you meet waterfall release expectations without slowing daily CI/CD practices. In my opinion, this is the best option because preserves Agile technical practices, meets formal consolidation milestones, prevents idle time and reduces integration risk, better than slowing down CI/CD to match milestones. Agile technical flow and waterfall release cadence can coexist by treating consolidated builds as milestone events while maintaining continuous integration. Question 1096. A yearly waterfall planning cycle requires fixed scope and budget for the next 12 months. Your Agile team, however, adjusts backlog scope based on learning and value. Finance says this creates misalignment and unpredictability. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Provide high-level annual commitments based on product goals and epics, while explaining that detailed scope will be iterated within the year using Agile backlog refinement. In my opinion, this is the best option because offers predictability for budgeting, preserves agile flexibility in detailed scope, avoids overcommitting to uncertain work, better than forcing fixed detailed scope for the entire year. High-level annual planning can coexist with iterative agile delivery by combining epics with evolving backlog prioritization. Question 1097. Your Agile team discovers a major dependency that will delay a waterfall milestone by 3 weeks. The team wants to adjust sprint goals accordingly, but PMO expects milestone dates to remain fixed. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Escalate the impact to PMO with clear data, propose realistic milestone adjustments, and adjust sprint goals based on the new constraints while ensuring cross-team alignment. In my opinion, this is the best option because maintains transparency across governance levels, ensures milestone realism, allows the team to adapt sprint goals responsibly, better than silently absorbing delays. Transparent milestone adjustments preserve governance integrity while empowering agile responsiveness at sprint level. Question 1098. Waterfall milestones require fixed deliverables per phase, but your agile team delivers incremental value across phases. Stakeholders complain that this makes milestone reporting unclear. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Define milestone-aligned deliverable bundles by grouping increments from multiple sprints, ensuring each milestone summarizes the relevant completed increments clearly. In my opinion, this is the best option because makes milestones meaningful for stakeholders, fits agile incremental delivery, improves clarity on what is done by each phase. Better than forcing work to fit phase boundaries artificially. Milestone bundles give waterfall stakeholders clarity while preserving agile incremental progress. Question 1099. Your team runs 1-week sprints, but the waterfall steering committee expects monthly risk reviews. Risk profiles change rapidly due to short sprints, and leadership says updates are too frequent to digest. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Provide monthly consolidated risk summaries showing trends across multiple sprints, while maintaining detailed sprint-level risk review within the team. In my opinion, this is the best option because gives leadership the right level of detail, preserves rapid agile risk inspection cycles, maintains transparency without overwhelming stakeholders, better than reporting every sprint's risks individually. Trend-based monthly summaries provide leadership clarity while enabling Agile's rapid risk management. Question 1100. Your waterfall program requires formal stage gate approvals before starting each phase, but your Agile team continuously releases increments, leading the PMO to say the team appears out of sync with stage gate rules. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Align stage gate readiness checks with key sprint boundaries or release cycles, ensuring approvals occur at meaningful Agile points while still respecting mandatory waterfall gate criteria. In my opinion, this is the best option because integrate stage gates into Agile rhythms, avoids unnecessary delays, ensures compliance with governance, better than forcing rigid phase alignment. Stage gate alignment with Agile cycles maintains delivery flow while ensuring compliance with waterfall governance requirements. Question 1101. Your Agile teams work in 2-week sprints, but the waterfall PMO requires monthly detailed progress reports with % complete metrics. Sprint burndowns don't fit PMO expectations, and PMO leaders say your reports lack structure. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Translate sprint outcomes into milestone-aligned progress summaries, converting completed story points and delivered increments into % complete estimates aligned with PMO reporting templates. In my opinion, this is the best option because meets PMO's structured reporting need, uses Agile data without creating duplicate work, provides leadership with comparable metrics. Better than forcing teams to adopt waterfall reporting workarounds. Effective hybrid reporting requires translating Agile outputs into PMO-required language while keeping Agile transparency intact. Question 1102. Leadership wants a 1-page health dashboard combining Agile metrics, velocity, committed versus completed, with waterfall metrics, earned value, planned value. The formats conflict, and teams argue about which numbers matter. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create a unified hybrid dashboard where Agile flow metrics are mapped to waterfall value metrics, ensuring consistent definitions and explaining how each metric contributes to overall project health. In my opinion, this is the best option because creates shared understanding, avoids conflicting narratives, respects both governance models. Better than reporting two separate dashboards. Hybrid dashboards unify data sources and help leadership interpret progress holistically across methodologies. Question 1103. Your Agile team reports work done using story points, but the Waterfall Steering Committee wants effort reported in hours and % complete. The committee says story points are unusable for decision-making. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Convert story point completion into effort trends and % complete estimates for steering reports, while keeping story points internally for Agile planning. In my opinion, this is the best option because maintains internal Agile practices, gives leadership the format they understand, bridges communication gaps, better than eliminating Agile estimation entirely. Converting Agile metrics into PMO-friendly formats preserves Agile discipline while aligning with Waterfall reporting expectations. Question 1104. Different teams report progress using different tools. Agile teams use Jira dashboards, while Waterfall teams use MS Project Gantt charts. The PMO complains that status updates cannot be compared across teams. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Implement a consolidated reporting layer that pulls key indicators from both Jira and MS Project, translating them into a common PMO reporting structure. In my opinion, this is the best option because creates enterprise-level consistency, avoids forcing teams to change tools, ensures comparable reporting metrics, better than manually reconciling reports. Hybrid reporting frameworks unify data without standardizing tools, preserving agility and structure simultaneously. Question 1105. Your Agile team delivers increments every sprint, but Waterfall reporting requires phase-based deliverable updates. Stakeholders say Agile deliverables don't map neatly to the phase-based model. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Group sprint increments into phase-aligned deliverable packages for reporting, ensuring each Waterfall phase shows clear progress using aggregated Agile output. In my opinion, this is the best option because creates clarity at phase level, preserves Agile incremental delivery, helps stakeholders understand progress, better than forcing work into rigid phase buckets, aggregation bridges, Agile increments with Waterfall's phase model, improving visibility while maintaining Agile delivery. Question 11.6. Executives complain that your hybrid project reports are too detailed and technical. Agile reports show backlog details, while Waterfall reports show complex Gantt dependencies. Leaders want concise, business-focused updates. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create an executive summary layer focusing on business outcomes, key risks, and milestone impacts, using Agile and Waterfall data only as supporting inputs. In my opinion, this is the best option because tailors reporting to leadership needs, reduces noise from technical details, shows progress in business terms. Better than giving executives raw Agile Waterfall data. Executive summaries that blend Agile outcomes and Waterfall progress are essential in hybrid environments. Question 1107. Your hybrid project uses multiple teams. Some report bi-weekly in Agile ceremonies, and others report monthly in steering meetings. Information becomes outdated and inconsistent across reports. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Establish a synchronized reporting calendar where inputs from sprint reviews and monthly meetings feed into a consolidated cadence, ensuring consistent information across all stakeholder groups. In my opinion, this is the best option because ensures consistent, up-to-date reporting, connects different cadences into one rhythm, reduces confusion and data conflicts. Better than forcing all teams into one uniform cadence, a synchronized hybrid reporting calendar aligns teams without sacrificing agility. Question 1108. The steering committee requires RAG, red, amber, green status for milestones, but Agile teams track progress only in terms of velocity and story completion. The team's reports never match the required RAG format. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Introduce a RAG mapping model where velocity trends, sprint completions, and risk levels feed into the milestone RAG status, providing consistent translation into steering reporting. In my opinion, this is the best option because meets steering expectations, uses Agile data effectively, creates consistent and objective RAG criteria, better than manually guessing RAG colors. RAG mapping supports leadership decision-making while keeping Agile data as the foundation. Question. 9. Waterfall teams provide long-term forecasts in Gantt charts, but Agile teams cannot commit beyond a few sprints. Leadership says forecasts from Agile teams lack maturity. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Provide a rolling wave forecast based on velocity trends and backlog size, updating it regularly while showing assumptions and confidence levels for long-term planning. In my opinion, this is the best option because balances Agile adaptability with waterfall forecasting needs, shows transparency about uncertainty, helps leadership plan without forcing premature commitments, better than providing no forecasts or overly rigid ones. Rolling wave forecasting bridges the gap between Agile uncertainty and waterfall predictability expectations. Question. 11.10. Leadership complains that different Agile teams report velocity differently. Some use story points, some use counts of items, others use no velocity at all. This inconsistency makes hybrid reporting unreliable. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Define a standardized reporting model for velocity across Agile teams, while allowing flexibility in internal estimation practices, ensuring outward-facing reporting is consistent. In my opinion, this is the best option because creates cross-team comparability, preserves internal team autonomy, aligns hybrid reporting without heavy disruption, better than forcing all teams to estimate identically. Standardizing outward reporting ensures executive clarity while enabling Agile teams to keep their preferred estimation approach internally. Question. 111.11. Your Agile team iterates requirements every sprint, but the Waterfall Governance Board requires formal change requests, CRs, for any modifications to scope, even small ones. The board says Agile changes are not traceable. What should you do? Here's my answer, and why. Establish a lightweight CR process that bundles minor Agile requirement changes into periodic consolidated updates, while using formal CRs only for high-impact items, satisfying governance without slowing Agile flow. In my opinion, this is the best option because reduces administrative burden, ensures traceability required by governance, preserves Agile flexibility by avoiding CRs for every tiny change, better than forcing full CRs for each backlog update. Hybrid environments work best when CR processes are adapted to Agile cadence, using consolidation and thresholds rather than heavy one-by-one approvals. Question. 11.12. A major sponsor requests a significant scope addition mid-quarter. Agile teams can absorb it by reprioritizing backlog items, but the waterfall roadmap is fixed, and PMO requires impact analysis before accepting changes. The sponsor wants immediate commitment. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Perform a rapid impact assessment across schedule, budget, and dependencies. Present the trade-offs to both PMO and the sponsor, and agree on which lower priority items should be dropped or delayed. In my opinion, this is the best option because balances Agile flexibility with waterfall impact analysis, ensures informed decision-making, shows transparency around trade-offs, better than accepting scope impulsively. Hybrid change handling requires structured impact analysis and transparent trade-offs, not blind acceptance or rejection. Question. 11.13. Waterfall governance requires formal approval for any change affecting budget or timelines. Your Agile team discovers mid-sprint that an external dependency will delay delivery by 2 sprints. PMO expects an updated schedule before proceeding. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Document the delay impact, update the milestone forecast, and submit the revised schedule through the formal governance workflow while adjusting the Agile plan to reflect new constraints. In my opinion, this is the best option because maintains transparency with PMO, ensures governance alignment, allows Agile teams to adapt quickly, better than delaying communication. Timely impact updates prevent governance misalignment and ensure teams can replan effectively. Question. 11.14. The PMO insists that any change must go through the Change Advisory Board, CAB, but Agile teams release continuously. CAB reviews every 2 weeks, cause bottlenecks, and slow down value delivery. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Work with CAB to define change categories, enabling low-risk Agile increments to go through a pre-approved fast-track path, while reserving CAB reviews for high-risk or architectural changes. In my opinion, this is the best option because reduces bottlenecks, maintains CAB oversight where needed, supports continuous delivery, better than pushing every tiny change through CAB. Tiered approval models maintain governance while enabling Agile speed, solving CAB bottlenecks elegantly. Question 1115. The waterfall plan has a fixed scope baseline, but the Agile team's backlog refinement causes scope items to evolve frequently. PMO accuses the team of changing scope without approval. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Link backlog refinement updates to the scope baseline using traceability records and communicate any material scope changes through the formal change process while allowing minor refinements to proceed normally. In my opinion, this is the best option because separates clarifications from scope changes, maintains alignment with baseline, ensures PMO visibility, better than treating every refinement as a scope change. Hybrid projects must distinguish between refinement, clarifying, and actual scope change to maintain alignment and flexibility. Question 1116. The Agile product owner wants to pivot based on new customer feedback, but the waterfall-driven contract has strict scope statements. Legal says changes require formal contract amendments. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Review the contract's change clauses with legal and the PO, perform impact analysis, and negotiate a formal amendment that incorporates the new scope while adjusting cost timeline appropriately. In my opinion, this is the best option because aligns Agile responsiveness with contractual obligations, ensures legal and financial compliance, prevents breach of contract, better than acting on customer feedback without approval. Contractual compliance is essential in hybrid projects. Change must follow legal pathways even when Agile needs to pivot. Question 1117. Stakeholders push for urgent changes during late stages of a waterfall milestone. The Agile team can react quickly, but making changes now will disrupt system testing and integration plans. PMO wants to avoid destabilizing the milestone. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Assess the impact of the requested change on testing and integration, present the risks and alternatives to stakeholders, and recommend deferring the change to the next iteration or release unless it is critical. In my opinion, this is the best option because protects system stability, provides stakeholders transparency, enables informed decision-making, better than accepting last-minute changes without assessment. Hybrid change management requires thoughtful evaluation. Late-stage changes must be balanced against testing and integration stability. Question 1118. In your hybrid project, waterfall governance requires fixed integration points every quarter. Agile teams want flexibility to reorganize features mid-quarter. Leadership says these reorganizations make integration planning unreliable. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Create a quarterly integration backlog that freezes integration-critical items while allowing feature-level Agile reprioritization within non-critical areas, balancing flexibility and predictability. In my opinion, this is the best option because protects integration schedules, allows Agile flexibility where it doesn't harm dependencies, improves alignment between teams, better than locking down the entire backlog, protecting integration-critical work while allowing flexibility elsewhere, keeps hybrid delivery predictable without over-constraining sprints. Question 1119. The PMO requires formal documentation updates for any approved change. Agile teams maintain evolving artifacts instead of formal documents, causing PMO to complain about missing updates. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Map Agile artifacts, backlog items, acceptance criteria, design notes to required documentation sections and update only the impacted sections after a change is approved, ensuring documentation stays current with minimal overhead. In my opinion, this is the best option because avoids creating full documents repeatedly, ensures PMO receives what they need, keeps Agile workflow intact, better than rewriting documents entirely for every change. Selective documentation updates aligned with Agile artifacts ensure compliance with minimal disruption. Question 1120. Your waterfall sponsors want strict change control to avoid budget creep. Agile teams argue that continuous reprioritization is part of their process. Sponsors feel Agile is too uncontrolled. What should you do? Here's my answer and why. Define clear boundaries between backlog reprioritization within existing scope and budget and true scope change requiring formal approval, ensuring sponsors understand which activities impact cost and which do not. In my opinion, this is the best option because clarifies what actually triggers budget impact, reduces sponsor anxiety, preserves agile adaptability, better than forcing all backlog changes through formal controls. Boundaries between reprioritization and true scope change protect both agile flexibility and waterfall governance, enabling healthier sponsor confidence.